John, overlapping all this, the start of the success of the Orient, of course, was your Test debut came about in 1976. And it was use the word sensational debut. It was a sensational debut. Talk us through that. Go on.
It was a situation where we used in all the warm-up games, and there was quite a few because unlike today, our tour was nearly 4 months long. So we played everybody in India. We played different zones and different hierarchy sides, and we used Indian cricket balls. And I got some wickets with them, and they swung around quite nicely. And dear old Kenny Barrington, who was our manager, he turned around and said, "You like those balls?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, I think you're going to be in the first Test match. You've deserved a place. You've got some wickets. How do you feel about using them in the Test match?" Because England, as a side, used to take 24, 48 taut cricket balls with us and say, "This is what we're using," in our manner that we have. And Kenny went to the Indian board and said, "Look, we think you've made great progress with your cricket balls. We'd like to use them in the Test match." And they were over the moon about it. They were absolutely. And when we got to that first Test match, we were given a choice of 3 or 4 different makes of Indian cricket ball. And we picked the one that we'd had success with. And they hadn't quite perfected them. They weren't quite as hard as they should have been. And sometimes they weren't wound because they were all hand wound. They weren't quite, shall I say, as round as they should be. Anyway, the first ball was a bit soft, didn't do very much, and went to the umpire and said, "Look, this has gone out of shape." So he changed it, gave us another ball, which swung. And it swung, yes, I could swing the ball, but this went a long way. Yeah. And I got some wickets. And I think the pleasing fact was not that I'd bowled well, but I managed to get 4 LBWs in India, which was Indian umpires. There was no panel umpires. And one of them was Sunil Gavaskar. And yeah, everything went my way. It really did. It was a great time. Yeah. It was good fun.
Yeah. Did you get that? Did you get that umpire again in subsequent matches, or was he ridden out the country? I mean, as you said there, to get 1 LBW is amazing. To get 4, well, that borders on the sensational.
He was a lovely man. I can't think of his name.
But in that Test match in Delhi on debut, I mean, you said you got a few wickets, so typically modest of yours. I think you took 7 for 46 in that first innings, didn't you, with the ball swinging around corners, as you were saying there. Then another 3 wickets in the second innings. We won by an innings and 25. But you had also played your role as a batsman in that, hadn't you? You went in as a night watchman and got a half century, I believe.
Yeah, that helps. That helped a hell of a lot in settling nerves. So you're always, your job is to get wickets, is to take the new ball, and to actually bat first. Helped a little bit. You got used to the changing room and the crowds and all that. But then to say we need a night watchman, will you put the pads on? And I went out to bat with Dennis Amos was out there.
Yeah.
And Dennis is as cool as they come. He really is. And he got 150, I think, something like that. And he kept talking to me and I said, "Well, I'll have a little whack at him now. I've done my job." And he went, "No, you won't." He said, "You keep batting." And he talked me through it, to be honest. And I managed to get to 50. And that was, that meant a lot to me, because every bowler likes to think he can bat a bit. I have to say they didn't have anybody too quick who was going to knock my head off, but because there was no helmets in those days. Right. But it turned. They had Chandrasekhar, Prasanna. They had some Bisham Bedi. They had some great spin bowlers, and the pitches did turn.
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
we all know that they were going to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Greggy, to his as a captain, he made sure that all of us had nets. He wouldn't just let the batters have nets. He said everybody has a knock.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a surprise to put the pads on and go out and bat,
Right.
which is something that didn't happen in my early career at Essex, I have to say. It was come and have a bowl at Barker again or something.
But you were saying there that perhaps the pace attack didn't exactly scare you. But I suggest that what happened after that day, when England won, and you were hauled out in front of the media with Tony Greig to answer the questions and being interrogated by all the media. After that, you did have quite a hair-raising experience, didn't you? Tell us about that.
There was. I mean, there was. Being kept behind and facing all those press guys was a bit of a shock to the system. And Greggy being Greggy, there was a coach, and he said to the rest of the lads, "Look, Jake and myself will do the interviews. You lot get back to the hotel. You've had a long day," because you were getting to the grounds at 8 o'clock in the morning because the light went so early. So we were starting really early. It was a long day. And somebody said, "Well, how are you going to get back? Don't worry about us. You go back." So after the interviews have been done, I said, "Well, we're standing there in our whites, in our cricket sweaters, MCC cricket sweaters, and whites, and there's Greg who's 6'6" and blonde hair, and we went outside the ground." I said, "What are we going to do then, Greggy? I can't see too many taxis around here." He said, "Don't worry about that." Next thing I know, he's waving down this scooter, and this guy stopped and he's looking up at Greggy, and he's thought, Tony Greig, the England captain. So Greggy got on the back and he said, "Hang on a minute," and he stopped somebody else and got me on the back of another scooter, and the pair of us were going back to the hotel after having a good day, my first proper day with a ball in my hand, on the back of this scooter. And I've never had a motorbike, I've never had a scooter in my life, so I was and on their roads going round a roundabout with everybody, but everybody who's driving looking at Tony Greig, who's on the back of this scooter, 6'6", the driver's about 5'5". It looked such a weird sight, and I thought, we're going to crash here. This is a good start, but the end of a career here. We got back to the hotel, thankfully.
Brilliant. I would just have to move on now to a couple of controversial moments in your career. Don't really want to dwell on them, but it would be wrong not to address them. 2 tests later, that was the first test in Delhi. 2 tests later in Madras, there was this controversy over the Vaseline incident. You right from the start pleaded your innocence and have explained away so many times. It's been well documented. But if you just briefly touch on that, John, because I think it is right that when you talk
I'm quite happy.
You should have the opportunity again to clear your name.
Yeah, well, funny enough, it didn't even feel like I had to clear my name. It wasn't until turning up the following morning where there was these banners all the way around the ground: Cheetah leave, Cheetah Greig go home, and all this sort of stuff. But we had gone to Madras, which is down south and a warmer part. We'd probably got 2 sweaters on in Delhi. It was, it's their winter there. So having played a bit of football and sort of used Vaseline to keep the sweat out of your eyes, I said to our Bernard Thomas, our physio, I said, "Have you got any?" He went, "No." I said, "Okay." He said, "But I've got this Vaseline gauze," which he'd only bought 2 days before that test match. So all the talk about they probably used it in the first 2 test matches, all that was absolute rubbish anyway. And I said, "Well, what's it like?" He said, "Well, I cut you a strip off." He said, "You put a bit above your eye here and here and see if that works." And he cut a bit out for Bob Willis, a long strip, which he put right across his forehead. And Bob ran up, bowled the first ball, and this thing fell down over his eyes, and he went, "I'm not using that," and he took it off and threw it away. I kept mine on a bit longer. It wasn't comfortable. It didn't feel right. And I took it off, threw it on, and the umpires pounced on it, and Bish went off alarmingly. He was under a bit of pressure. You know, he was losing 2-0 in a series. His captaincy was under pressure, and I couldn't believe that I'd got on, you know, really well with the guy, and I couldn't believe that he would turn the way he did. But pressure does things to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think they sent the ball back to have it analysed. It came back with sun cream, sweat, and saliva on the ball, which is on every cricket ball that you ever bowl.
Yeah.
So I think by the time I got to the end of the tour, I sort of got over that. But going to Australia, I thought that was going to be hard work, because I thought what they're like over there, they'll certainly give me it. And they didn't. They just saw it as part of the way things happen in cricket. If anybody does well, there's always somebody to take away the glory, if you like.
Yeah.
So it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. I found it hard to. I did make it up with Bish in the end. We shook hands, but originally I found it very, very hard to talk to him.
Yeah, it must have been. Well, you took 26 wickets in that series anyway, so you know that the figures speak volumes anyway. And you mentioned Australia there. Of course, you played in the centenary Test match, didn't you? Which was a terrific experience. Must have been a terrific experience for you and an honour. Yeah,
it was. I have to say, by the time we'd done that huge tour of India, then we went to Sri Lanka. We played in an unofficial test match out there. They weren't test playing nation then. And then we went out to Australia. We played warm-up games out there as well before the. So honestly, it seemed forever. It really did. And I think this took the edge off it a little bit for me. I was a bit homesick by then. I was ready to go home. But it was a great game. It was 78,000. On an average, 78,000 people a day came in to watch that game, and all the dinners and all the players that had ever played for England were out there. They had a fantastic time. They really did. It was for us playing. It wasn't quite so easy, and the 400 bats that were in the changing room, from courtesy of Bedson Hedges, who wanted them signed. So there was a lot going on, and it was a good game of cricket. And the more I think about it, the more upset that we didn't win it, because we sort of played most of the cricket in it at one stage, and we let Marshy get away in the second innings, and that was very disappointing, because I thought we could have won that.
Yeah. And then one last moment of addressing the controversial side. You went on the so-called Rebel tour to South Africa with Gucci in '82, and incurred the wrath, shall we just say, of the TCCB and the governing bodies, who issued you and Gucci with a 3-year ban. I know you felt that was extremely unfair and unrealistic at the time, and probably still do.
I thought it was unrealistic. I thought it was a long ban. I thought 3 years out of anybody's international career is quite a big chunk. At the same time, we had the Packer situation going on, and I misguidedly thought Packer was trying to take over Test cricket, so I was totally against that. And then the South Africa thing came out the blue. It wasn't talked about on the trip. Somebody said, "Do you want to go?" It was a lot of money. It was once again, it was poorly paid cricketers trying to earn a living. Got out there, couldn't believe the amount of press that were there. None of them were cricket writers. They were all newsmen. The first game, Gucci said, "We are a breweries 11."
Right.
South African Breweries 11. And that's what we've come here to play our cricket as. And the very first game we got, there was England 11 written on the top of the scoreboard. And he tried in vain to get that taken down. And I think it surprised all of us, the amount of feeling that I went on the ground and saw British Petroleum, Barclays Bank adverts, everybody earning their living, except the poor old sportsman who becomes the whipping boy once again. And I suppose, knowing the sort of years that I had after or during that 3 years where I got a few wickets, perhaps I could have played more for England, and that would have been nice. It wasn't easy playing for England at that time. There were some pretty good bowlers around, so took it in turns a little bit to get in the side. I might have got in. I might have been able to force one or two people aside with the amount of wickets that I got. So mixed feelings really.
Well, it was mixed feelings because whilst I think every Essex supporter would have been shocked, as you've said there, at the length of the ban, there was a certain, shall we say, a feeling of smug satisfaction, because it meant that you and Gucci, two of world-recognised international players, were available for Essex for 3 years uninterrupted, and we really benefited from that. And I think, so did your game, didn't it, John? You continued taking a haul of wickets. You seem to get stuck on 106 for a number of years. I think you're 106 in 1978. You repeated that figure again in 79, another 106 in 1983 before you finally cracked it and got 116 in 1984. So you're obviously working hard at your game by then, weren't you?
All the same batsman.
And that Indian umpire, you found him again at last. But you come back playing in 83. I think you alluded to there. We had this B&H Cup final, which we lost by four runs. The build up to it, yours, was to spend time in hospital with a stomach operation, wasn't it? But you decided that you would play. So not the best preparation for you.
No, looking back on it, I should have said no. I should have not played. It was an abscess that was quite bad, but they drained it and said, look, I can't do any damage to it, so you can play. And I hadn't missed too many games through injury, so I probably felt a little bit invincible, and that was wrong. Somebody should have said, you're not playing, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to play, especially big games, but perhaps I might have been wrong saying, yes, I'll play in that one. It didn't... if I'm truthful, the energy levels weren't quite as high as they should have been.
Right. But even then, we did lose 5 wickets for 7 runs, didn't we? And failed by 4 in the end. So, there was a whole... You could point the finger at all sorts of people, couldn't you?
I still see it now. And I was out there with Neil Foster, wasn't I? I think it was... and Fozzie... Great bowler, huge confidence in his own ability, absolute huge confidence. And he came out to bat, and I said, we don't need many. We can, we can do this. And he went, yeah, I know we can. and he clipped this ball, and it came out the middle of the bat, and it was a yard either side of Mike Gatting, and it was 4 runs. Right. And he managed to hang on to it. It went straight to him, and he hung on to it, and we lost it. Yeah. And it was, I had to drag Fozzie off the field. It was a sad moment, but one of those things. That's why we love the game so much, I think.
Yeah. But 2 years later, back at Lord's, and Essex once again tasting the sweet taste of success, beat Notts by 1 run. What a nail-biting match that was.
I can remember being at. I think I was 3rd man or fine leg. Derek Randall had played absolutely brilliantly, and Pringle was bowling, and he bowled so well. I can't speak. highly enough of the guy who
Right.
he learned how to bowl in one-day cricket. He was
Yeah.
our top one-day bowler. And I'm at third man thinking, if they run it down to me, they're going to get two because the arm wasn't as good as it used to be. And I was dreading this, absolutely dread. Even if it was a nick, but even if they sort of run it down there, I was thinking, I don't know if I can get it back over the top quick enough to stop them getting two. And Randall had gone outside leg stump all the time and hit the ball over extra cover, and I'm at third man. That's why I kept thinking it's coming to me. And then for some unknown reason, the last ball, he went across his stumps and tried to clip it through mid-wicket. And the same situation as the Gatting job. He found Paul Pritchard, I think it was, straight to him, caught the ball, and that time we had to drag dear old Derek Randall off the pitch, who was a little bit upset. But once again, swings and roundabouts. We win a few, lose a few.
Indeed. And so Notts got their revenge 4 years later, didn't they? Well, again off the last ball, and tensions as well. I mean, dramatic finals, but perhaps really what cup finals should be made of, John.
I think so. I think there's nothing worse than a one-sided game. Whoever you're supporting, you're going to remember those games. They're great games to play in. They're not so good when you lose, obviously, but they're great games to play in, and the people that were there will remember them forevermore. Yeah,
indeed. Amongst all those, of course, with Essex are carrying on winning titles. Apart from the 79, was there one year when we won a championship title that gave you particular satisfaction more than others?
No, I think, as we talked about getting over the hurdle, winning it that first time, and I can remember most of the titles, but I do remember one year when we played down at Southend, and we were going well. We were playing some great cricket. We batted second, I think. So if a wicket's going to break up in a 3-day game, you must bat first.
Yeah.
And I think we batted second, and we bowled out. I don't know who it was. It might have been Gloucester. Anyway, they reported the pitch, and dear old Harry Bryn came down, and they docked us 25 points, and it cost us the championship.
Yeah. That was the game against Yorkshire. In 89.
Yeah. And I got so upset about that because the pitch wasn't that bad. You know, we batted on it, and they'd had a chance to bat first on it to get all the runs they needed, and they didn't. We bowled them out.
Yeah.
And that really stuck in my throat a little bit. I thought that's not fair. That isn't the right way to. And then, of course, watching the cricket in this last year and seeing what was happening down at Somerset, I was thinking, if they win this, I'm gonna write to someone. I'm gonna get so upset. And that wicket was far worse than anything that we played on then.
Yeah.
But the lads came through, and it was great to watch, and I couldn't have been more pleased for them, I must admit.
No. 89 was to prove you last year. What must have been a real wrench to give up on a team not on a team, but give up your career. You know, you're still winning things regularly. What was the reasoning behind your decision to retire, John?
I just the body. The body was sort of saying, well, you can't throw anymore. Knees were starting to take a little bit longer to work and to recover.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody wants to give up the game. You know, you do you miss it? Of course you miss it. You'd like to play on forever and ever. But there's certain times your body says, no, you can't do it anymore. And I made the mistake of going to play in minor counties cricket for a year or two, and I couldn't do it there either. And that really said, you made the right decision. You can't do that. So although I wanted to play, and dear old Doug Insole, bless him, said, look, if you want another year, you can come along and we'll look after you and play certain games. And I said, thanks very much, Doug, but I don't feel as though I can do it anymore. And that's when I went off to work at Bancroft School.
Yeah, but you signed off. You gave everybody a reminder of the privilege they'd had of watching you over the years, and a stellar career. 7 wickets in your last game against Surrey at Chelmsford. Left the field to a standing ovation and a guard of honour, I think, from the Surrey players, which is a bit special, isn't it? When it's nice for you to know that not only are you getting peer acceptance, but from opposition as well.
It was very nice. It was a nice feeling to get wickets and bow out at that time. It was, as you say, it was special for them. It was for them to do that, but it also took me back to winning that award, the Players Player of the Year award, 2 years running. That to me was special. That meant a lot to me, and I can honestly say that in that 22 years or 23 seasons or whatever it was, I didn't come across too many cricketers that I couldn't get on with. I thought they were all genuine people. They really were, and county cricket's in quite a good shape. There's some good people out there playing the game, and hopefully it'll carry on once we get past this terrible situation we're in now.
So just to we'll go on to a couple of questions we've had from people that have written, but the biggest disappointment in your game, perhaps in your career, John, perhaps you mentioned it earlier, have you, the 83 defeat, or is that the biggest one?
I think that the Eddie Hemmings ball was probably my biggest disappointment, because I knew what I wanted to do. Should have enforced my opinions onto Gucci a bit quicker. Said, let me get on with it. Let me go run up and bowl it. And I think we took 5 minutes to bowl the ball. And probably the adrenaline just started to disappear a little bit. And it went somewhere near leg stump, but not as far to the leg side as I wanted it to go. So I was upset about that. Yeah. The rest of it, I've got no problems about at all. I've enjoyed every single minute. Yeah. The whole Essex entourage, the physio, the physios we've had there, the people, Peter Edwards, all those people looking after us, the committee, Doug, dear old Tom Pearce, all those sort of people. Yeah. They made life very, very easy, and just enjoyed. And of course, every fan, every Essex member. And there was a lot of them at one stage. I think we had, did we have somewhere near 9,000 at one stage? Like yeah. I think there was, and you can't get them into Chelmsford anymore. It only takes 6,000. But they were fantastic, and I think they loved every minute of it as well.
Yeah. Well, we've said the biggest disappointment, but the one biggest thrill as you sort of just look back. I know it's hard. You've had so much success. Is there one game, one moment that sticks out that will always stay to the forefront of your mind?
It will always be that Benson Hedges moment, that game against Surrey. That was the first game that we'd ever won. That meant as much to me as playing in India on that first day. That was a special feeling, because there was everybody that you'd ever come across in cricket in Essex. Yeah, I think they were all there. It felt for a lot of us that it was sort of payback time. You supported us for all those years, and it hadn't come easy. It'd taken its time, and we'd grown up together. So the players and the crowd, the whole lot, and that meant absolutely everything to me.
Yeah. That's brilliant. But just go on to say three questions that are probably reflective of a number that people have sent in. One comes from Jack Pearce, who wants to know who your favourite Essex teammate was and why.
Although I sort of roomed with Boise for quite a long time. I sort of kicked around with Ray East most of the time. In the changing room, there were Keith Pont and Ackers was very funny as well. I mean,
Right.
wherever you looked, there was somebody with a quick word.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I seem to sort of hang around with Raymond. I dare I say it, but I've been best man for him twice now. Doing it again, he's got to find somebody else. But
Was he a comedian in the dressing room as well? I mean, publicly he was, wasn't he? He was just
Kenny McEwen sat next to him in the changing room, and he said, every day that I went in there, I sat there and laughed.
Yeah.
He said it was just sitting there, watching him come in with his bag of whites, which probably consisted of one shirt and one pair of socks. And he said, at the end of the day, he walked out with a great big bundle of whites that he'd nicked from everybody else. But he said it just made him laugh. And I think you've got to see the funny side of so much sport, because, as I say, it can be very cruel. It really can. Yeah. You've got to be able to laugh at certain things. And I think that, if I can sort of go on to that story about Eddie Hemmings, that ball, I got on really, really well with Jeff Miller all the way through my Indian trip and when he played for Essex. And we came in and you can imagine that everything was so flat. The whole changing room was flat. We just sat there. Nobody said a word. And Alan Lilly was 12th man. He didn't know what to do. He didn't know where to hide himself. He stood there. And all of a sudden, Jeff Miller went, well, I blame Lilly. We looked at each other and he sort of said, yeah, it's his fault that we didn't win. That definitely his fault. And Neil had that puzzled look on his face. One or two people started laughing and we gradually got through it.
Yeah.
But you need somebody, you need something that's going to keep you going, because the next day you've got to go out and play again, as we were saying. You've always got to pick yourself up after a defeat, and I think that's quite important.
Oh, that's brilliant. Ed Jones wants to know what trophy that you won with Essex gave you the most satisfaction and why. Well, I think you've explained that with that first trophy. But again, because it meant so much to you and so many of the players, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was the most memorable game, but the trophy was obviously the county championship trophy was the trophy to win. That meant more than all the other trophies.
Right.
But it was the win, the day, that sort of stayed with you as much as anything else. But the county championship trophy, definitely, as the boys last year will tell you, that's the one that they really wanted to win.
Yeah. Okay. And the final one from Andy Walden, and this goes back to your test career. You played in 21 tests, should have been more. And Andy says a lot of people say that you should have played more than you did. Did you feel that you were given a fair crack of the whip with England? You did actually, after that ban, you did play again, didn't you? You played at Headingley, I think, John, didn't you? You were recalled, so you did get another go. But just what your reflections are of that.
That last game that I got selected because it swung around, and I was more nervous in that game than any other game that I think I've played in. So the age thing probably got to me, and I felt a little bit, could I do it anymore?
Yeah.
Very
Did
difficult.
It frustrate you? You didn't play more for England?
It was nice to be involved in the setup. There was Beefy, there was Willis, Chris Old, Mike Hendrick. There was loads and loads of seamers around at that, Sylvie and Paul Allett. And lots and lots of Dilly came along. I felt that perhaps I got labelled as an overseas bowler. I think the fact that I could bowl long spells, I wasn't going to break down. I think that got me on 5 trips, which I loved. But I'd love to have played more games in England, where I think what I what I bowled would reap more benefits than out there. But that's the only thing. That's at the same time, feel lucky enough to have played.
Yeah. Well, what a wonderful, magnificent career you've had. You gave so much entertainment to people. And I guess the nice thing has come out through this interview is the fact that you enjoyed every moment of it, didn't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Every single moment. Yeah.
And if you look back and say that, then it ain't been a bad cricketing life, has it?
No. Quite happy with that.
John, that's brilliant.